Today, we are going to be celebrating the National Birthday of Sliced Bread by making, you guessed it, bread. Although you'll be watching this after the fact, today is April 1st, and no fooling, according to the internet, today is the National Birthday of Sliced Bread. That's an interesting claim, considering that sliced bread actually originated in July of 1928 in a bakery in Missouri. When I was growing up, my mom would often make sweetbreads or quick breads, but we're not gonna make those today. I also have clear memories of my mother making something called friendship bread, which was this weird dough that was passed around from person to person in a Ziploc bag, and it could be made into different kinds of sweetbread and desserts, and it was a strange concept. We are not making that today. She would also use her bread machine to create homemade bread. We are also not making that today. Instead, what we are making today is a recipe for oatmeal bread from a 1924 cookbook called the Modern Priscilla Cookbook. Now, Modern Priscilla was actually a magazine that was put out from the late 1800s and ended in about 1930, so this is towards the end of the Modern Priscilla run. And it was kind of like the modern equivalent of Better Homes and Gardens or something like that. It was a magazine for women with tips for housekeeping and cooking and cleaning and all sorts of interesting things like that. We're going to start off by boiling 3 cups of water, and then we're going to add that water to our oats to scald them. After we add the boiling water to the oats, we need to add some shortening. I chose to use butter, but you could have used vegetable shortening or lard or whatever you have on hand. Alright, so our oatmeal has cooled off enough that we can add our yeast, and the ideal temperature for adding yeast is actually between 105 degrees and 115 degrees Fahrenheit, because anything above that is going to kill your yeast, and anything below that, your yeast is going to struggle to get activated. So we're going to add 2 packets of yeast here, and stir that in. So as per the usual, I had made a mistake already. If I had read the directions carefully, it would have said that I was supposed to dissolve my yeast in the water with a tablespoon of sugar, and I did not do that. I, as you saw, just dumped it directly in there. So now I'm going to add my sugar and my water and just hope for the best. I would like to add a quick note here that the recipe does not call, obviously, for packets of yeast. It calls for a cake of yeast, and in today's equivalent, one of these little packets does equal 1 cake of yeast in those old recipes. At this point, we're going to go ahead and add all of our remaining ingredients, starting with a ½ cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 2/3 of a cup of nut meats. I chose to use walnuts here. And we're just going to give that a swish around the dish and get everything mixed together. With a lot of these older bread recipes, there is not an exact amount for flour, so you kind of have to guess based on the texture. I've made quite a few loaves of bread in my time, and so I kind of have a feel for what this is supposed to feel like, but we're going to add enough flour just until the dough is feeling nice and firm. The recipe then says to form the dough into loaves and to put into greased loaf pans. However, I found this dough nearly impossible to form into loaves, so I just divided the dough up and put it into 2 loaf pans. Cover it up and then let the bread double in size before you put it in the oven. Well, our bread has doubled in size. We're going to put it in the oven at 380 degrees, which is a very odd temperature, I think. And that's going to be in there for about an hour. But these old recipes, I have found that the times are very relative. So I'm going to keep watching this and take it out when it looks done. When your bread is done, pull it out of the oven, set it on a cooling rack, and we're going to let that fully cool before we cut into it. So how was the bread? In my opinion, this bread was incredible. But let's see how it scores, and we will rank it against some of our previous recipes here on Recipe Reviver. For flavor, I give this a 9 out of 10. I truly think with the butter in there and the nuts and the oats that the flavor was pretty intense for a basic homemade bread. The texture was actually really nice on this. It wasn't too firm, it wasn't too soft. 8 out of 10. It had lots of air pockets and a nice crust on that outside that was firm. This was really much better than some of the other homemade breads as far as texture goes than I've made in the past. The visual appeal of this, I think it looks alright with a 7 out of 10. Because the dough was hard to form into a loaf, that top is not smooth and pretty as it could be, so I did take some points off there. For simplicity, it's a 7 out of 10. I did make a mistake on this, and it does take a little bit of skill to figure out the right texture when you're mixing in that flour, since there aren't amounts that are specified. And is this a repeat recipe? Absolutely, this is a repeat recipe. I'm already thinking about when can I make it next. 10 out of 10. That means that our total score for this 1924 recipe for oatmeal bread is 41 points out of 50. That ties with our Raisin Bran Muffins recipe, and we'll have to see in future episodes where this goes from here. Catch us next time on Recipe Reviver.